This is the last week coming on Sunday. This is the last week of our 2-week fundraiser in order to purchase, pay off the mortgage of this complex of buildings. Actually, it's a couple of buildings in this case that are in the monastery complex. Help us do that. How would you do that? You might want to consider lots of places your money can go, a lot of places that you can donate. This is a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, this SokukoJi Buddhist community, which includes this monastery and all of its buildings. This place is dedicated to basic sanity, even though everyone here is crazy. Otherwise, why would they come here? So, but this is a place, this is a mandala, or a central area that we are endeavoring to create a very safe, consistent, and protected space for. So a few people out of thousands, millions can come here who want to train their mind to see the truth, inspired by the 2,500-year-old tradition of the Buddhist Dharma. You can help us do that. Reflect on that a little bit. Help us a little bit. Help us pay off this mortgage so this is a protected space, because we'll own it. So it might be a good idea for us to do that. We don't pay taxes on it because it's not for profit. I don't know what else to say about that, other than we need help in that area. This does not earn any money. It's a spiritual path, not a mundane path of profit. And then thank you to all of you who have already given literally thousands and thousands of dollars. Some people have given thousands themselves, especially the people who donated money for matching funds. So if you give $1,000, if you can, it's going to be matched with $1,000 that is waiting in the wings to join hands and go towards the mortgage. As I said before, think about it. Lots of places that you can support. This is a pretty good one. Thank you. Thanks to all of you who have already helped us. Good evening and welcome. Pardon my stuttering. As I said a few moments ago, in that I was asking for help, which I only started doing recently. Not an easy thing to do, to ask, even though Buddhists have been begging for centuries. Our culture isn't supported too well that way. You're looked upon as someone with a cardboard sign, which might not be a bad thing to do. The topic of this evening's Dharma talk is something I've talked about before, and I'll talk about again tonight, because you probably didn't hear me the first time, or you heard what you thought I said instead of what I said, which happens quite often, not only in this situation, but in lots of situations. We are always projecting out onto something what something is. And if that whatever something begins to communicate to us, we hear what we think is going on based on our prejudice. If you think you're not prejudiced, the very nature of prejudice is to think you're not prejudiced. Pay attention to what is coming through the door, down the street. Picking and choosing. Works well in the mundane path of success and failure, right and wrong, up and down, black and white, night and day, life and death. And the spiritual path works a little bit. The provisional teachings are all about that. Improving a little bit, getting to the cushion a little bit more, understanding a little bit more of what Dogen was saying, understanding a little bit more what the Buddha was saying, what any of the lineage holders were saying. But wanting this, not wanting that, picking this and letting that go by the wayside is not particularly important, not particularly helpful on the spiritual path. What if you can't pick and choose or decide, should I go here or there, or should I do this? If Sokuzan, if you're saying you can't do that, what the hell am I supposed to do then? And I would say, just look at it, just receive. And then that thing that will happen to the picking and choosing, which is based on hope and fear, right and wrong, up and down, back and forth, making money or losing money, looking good or not looking so good, being embarrassed or being proud, will be replaced by, I'll say it very bluntly, dependent origination. It will be replaced by seeing yourself. You actually will see. I can't guarantee it, because it wouldn't be appropriate to do that, guarantee anything. I don't know what's going to happen to you. You might blow up. Might be the best thing that ever happened to you. Explode right out in place. The Vajra-like samadhi will crack your skull open. You better hope the Vajra-like samadhi doesn't happen to you. Why not? Go ahead. Blow up. But am I saying that the absence of choice becomes choiceless? So you see that there isn't anything with this, and something may appear as this or that, or should I or shouldn't I, but if you don't do anything with it, which if you get a little bit of clarity around your insanity, then you'll know what to do. It won't make choices about it. You might mistake that for arrogance initially, especially in someone else. If you meet someone who no longer makes choices, this could be very, very intimidating. It's very intimidating to meet someone who is not confused in the way you are. But since they may be confused or may appear confused, if they're a Dharma teacher, they are probably mirroring you, because they don't know what else to do. It's not that they don't know what else to do. It means that they mirror everything because they're not separate from anything. So if your neurosis comes up, stands in front of them, then they meet that neurosis where it's at. Isn't that right, Taekwondo? Right? Doi Tashimashite. We're speaking in Tibetan. So the idea is you're just walking down the path of life, and the fork in the road, and one goes this way, one goes that way, to put a simple image, and you come up to it, you don't do anything. You just look at it. You don't have to pick and choose. The situation itself will pick and choose, if necessary at all. You might just make camp. Good place to pitch a tent. Or you might look at it and you might understand something about the nature of this path. This path might go slightly uphill. The other one might go slightly down. one area might be more sunlight coming through the trees, and the other one less, and depending on all the causes and conditions that are showing up in your mind stream and in your life stream and in what you're even doing on that path, maybe better to have more light on the path, or maybe better to have less light. Maybe better to have that path slightly narrowing, or the other, or slightly opening up. Just using this as an example, you could actually look at that. You could receive what is in front of you rather than receive some kind of something where you feel like you have to come to a decision. You feel pressured to make a decision because something is pursuing you. Hope and fear. Hope for something better, fear of something worse. Picking and choosing. What sutra is that? There it says picking and choosing is the disease of the mind. Can anybody quote that? Is that the Shinsen Ming? The heart mind of Sokuzan? What's heart mind? What does that mean? It's mind, but it's heart, or it's heart mind, or it's heart, but it's mind? And why would it be a dis-ease? Because it creates a dilemma. Fear, like I said earlier, I was first asking for help for this mandala, that where we are trying to become completely sane. No more warfare forever with anyone. No fear. And even if fear shows up, that's the amazing thing and it's so difficult to explain that. When I say it's difficult, because you see it, but how do you tell someone that they can be completely terrified and afraid, and yet they don't mind? Because there's no one home anymore. It's like living in an empty house means that you're not even there. So you don't mind. You don't mind anything. This doesn't mean that my back isn't killing me. Of course it is. But do I mind? Actually not. Would I like it to go away? Yes, but there's no demand. It doesn't make me some kind of a hero. Everybody has some kind of ache, some aches or pains somewhere, some physical difficulty, more than likely. If you're over the age of 20, something is going haywire. I remember when I jumped out of bed once when I was probably about 11, and I had my Achilles tendon, there was a cramp in it. And I tried to walk across the room, and I had to kind of limp, and I immediately started thinking of old age. Here I am, 10 or 11. And I asked my mother about it, and I was right. She says, "Oh, that's just growing pains." And I thought, I remember thinking, that's odd that it would be painful to grow. But that's probably what it was, growing pains. So that's that particular topic that we have titled this, or that actually Juzan. I asked him just 3 minutes before I walked in here, what should I talk about? He said, picking and choosing. I said, good, I'll talk about that. Hard to find something in the last 10, 15 years I haven't talked about. So let me have some questions, and we'll do this together. You ask me questions about what I've just been saying, and maybe coming from your direction, you will ask me questions that'll take us deeper into this based on your own life experience, based on your own practice, how it looks to you. Each person here, each person on Zoom has a specific and different understanding and different reception of what is happening. So let's do it together. Questions? Sir?
What's the fear in picking and choosing?
Fear, fundamentally, it's a fear of annihilation. The fear that you don't exist, that you're going to find out that you are nobody and your consciousness is coming to an end. Your separation, your singularity as a person is basically ego, the narcissism in the mind stream, described quite clearly in the seventh consciousness of the Yogacara tradition. Those four aspects of self-love, self-reference. What are the other two? Come on, you guys. Go ahead. Goes on.
Confusion of self.
Confusion of self.
Self-regard, self-pride, and self-love.
Pretty good. It's just a different, there are probably even more if you wanted to look at it. But it's just a self, consciousness has rolled up in some area of the consciousness, not the entire situation. It's kind of coiled up into a ball. Trungpa Rinpoche would call that a cocoon in the Shambhala tradition, cocooning. Willem Cocooning, have you heard that? Great painter. So coiled up into a ball to protect something that doesn't even need protection. It's unreal. So it's called paranoia paranoia about anything. Anytime you pull your finger out of the holster and aim it at somebody else and blame, this is the very nature of the seventh. Even if they actually did something, even if they stole your lawnmower, even if they insulted you, no matter what they did, to do that is the very nature of passion, aggression, ignorance. Ignorance of what you're pointing at, aggression of the tip of that finger pointing, might as well be a AK-47. Of course not at that extreme, but it can develop into that. And then the passion part of those three is all the entanglements that show up as reasons why it's okay for you to do that, and why they're not really paying attention, and they aren't functioning in a way that is receptive to who you are and what you're doing. They just don't understand. They're interfering with your life and your sovereignty as a separate human being. This is why we have the Bodhisattva path. That's why this came up a couple thousand years ago, at least, maybe more, and definitely in the form of the Buddha, an enlightening being, and then a Buddha. So sitting practice of meditation, returning to the teacher, the teaching, the community, the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, over and over again, just kind of changes your interferes with the conditioning of samsara, or getting advantage, getting ahead, making something of yourself. Not that you shouldn't make a living or study languages or study music or study geometry or trigonometry or history, anything. Of course you should, but also it might be good to have some kind of basic stability, basic sanity. You may not attain awakening, the complete awakening of a Buddha, but you may stop making yourself miserable and making other people miserable by downloading, offloading, shoving, and spraying others with your own neurosis in order to get rid of it. Anytime you blame, you're endeavoring to get rid of how you feel. When I say anytime, I don't know, there may be an exception there. Why don't you tell me about it? You know about it, if you think there's an exception. This is about receiving the generosity of giving everything your attention and the clarity to see what that is. And it takes time. It won't happen in 13 days, 84 days. May not happen in 10 or 20 years. You might have to practice longer than that. Do it anyway. Further?
Geez, I'm not, if the fork shows up and the fear doesn't, is it just more confusion to look for fear, to go to fear?
No, I wouldn't do that. Don't go to fear. We don't have to strategize around dependent origination and try to get that to happen. No, just look at the fork. Look at the division there. Look at the division. And if you just look and just receive whatever it is, the differentiation between the two cannot last. It will not hold up very long. One will start to fade and one will start to get brighter. And to the point where you just go that other way. You don't make a choice. It will tell you, dependent origination will tell you what to do. If you decide ahead of time, not that you can't, and not that you shouldn't, go ahead and decide based on feeling better, based on getting somewhere, based on. More? More from anyone?
She is unbowing.
Yes, sir.
The word disease is used in that, and I was wondering, in what sense is there an antidote, or in what sense is there a cure to picking and choosing, bowing?
So the word disease, or broken down a little bit more, is dis-ease. We're not at ease. We're not comfortable. We're right in the midst of suffering and anguish, or trepidation, or anxiety. Dis-ease. It's painful, and the cure for that is to look at it right in the face. And that may be difficult to do casually at the kitchen table, or with your head in your hands, or in any other way, contemplating that, or churning up thoughts about an analysis and judgments. And, okay, and maybe, perhaps, this could be true, or maybe I should give this more of a chance, and all that malarkey. Fancy word for it. This doesn't mean that you or any of us shouldn't perhaps talk to a counselor, talk to someone who has been trained in working with those things that are happening in mind. My teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche, was not particularly promoting any of that. Interestingly enough, though, Naropa Institute, which is now Naropa University, actually has a Buddhist psychology department. I think he was just trying to get those people that were listening to him to just train their minds and not go figure things out. So there are different levels of understanding there. And so you may have to do it lots of different ways. But the way we do this is look at the disease, look at the discomfort, receive whatever happens in the mind stream as a direct instruction about the nature of reality. This is what the Buddha did. This is what the other teachers down through the centuries, Bodhidharma and our lineage, stared at a wall, looked at a wall, observed a wall for 9 years. And I don't think he did it 24/7. I think he probably had lunch and took a few breaks here and there. It just meant that he spent a lot of time looking at the wall. It's another way of describing shikantaza. And also there's the story that legend that he cut out his eyelids or something like that, which of course is, you have to look at that for what it is. Of course he didn't do that. It just means he kept his eyes open. But that's a really strong way of teaching that. Keep your eyes open. So because it's very strong temptation to shut the eyes and create some kind of artificial state of samadhi or non-duality or what have you, or tranquility or resting in this or that. I'm not against that. If you need to do that, go do it. It's a fork in the road, and you'll know you're going to take the high road or the low road, and when they're all leading to the Buddha, it's one way or another. Some people just need to chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Why, I don't know. But do that. That's better than playing the ponies, I would say. It lacks enough intention that makes it pretty strong mantra. Mozuku,
Sokuzan.
loud please, loud.
If you're looking at a situation and it looks like a choice, but you are just waiting to see how that develops, and that all that chatter, the explanation, the this or that, it seems like that chatter gets in the, does that chatter get in the way of us seeing the situation?
It does not. But don't cave to the chatter. Just observe it. It's just like, monkeys on typewriters. Not going to happen. They're not going to type the preamble to the Constitution. Just watch the chatter. Eventually, since you're not buying it, not selling it, not ignoring it, passion, aggression, and ignorance, eventually it dies down. It's just uncomfortable to hear all that crap coming out of an ancient past. Just observe. You can do it. All you really have to do is hold your body still and be an observer, be a passenger on the train, be in the front row of the theater of your mind. Just observe. Might not be particularly entertaining, but you're slowly training your mind to just receive. That's of all the words I could use right now, it would be that one. More?
Shoto bowing. When things are choiceless, is there still a leading edge or an appearance of the fork in the road? Bowing.
You want to know? I heard you, but the whole thing isn't there. What do you want to know?
Shoto bowing. Do you still see this or that?
Yes, it's unreal. What is real? Find out. Yes, if you're asking if I still see that this might look like the best direction to go based on a bunch of ideas or conclusions or judgments or evaluations that are following you around like raccoons. Of course, they don't follow you around, but you know what I mean. Following you around like hungry kitties. Recognize that one? Just observe that. But there may come a time, there may come a moment in that situation where you just need to do this. It might just come out of some other area that's not really the ideas and conclusions that are arising. It's not really, you don't really do it out of what is showing up, the irregularity of the demand or the request or the picking and choosing emotions that come up. I need to do this. I need to do something. Listen to it, but don't obey. Don't do what you're told. Not a good idea.
Hashem.
Yes, sir. Happy birthday. And happy birthday to Sokuzan, too.
Yeah.
I see her, she's down here at the bottom of the thing without any picture because she's probably busy. You're not busy, so ask me a question.
How does picking and choosing relate to intention? Bowing?
But picking and choosing has a goal or a direction or a motivation or something there that you can grasp onto or believe in or all of that. Whereas the intention for instance, the intention to realize your true nature, the intention to see basic sanity, the intention to, in your case, you've received Jukai, the intention to fulfill the vow to save all beings. How the hell do you do that? It's just about impossible to figure it out, understand it, think about it. It's just, how do you do that? Doesn't seem to be anyhow, but the important thing is to intend to see that, to return to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha over and over and over, return to the wall, gaze at the wall, observe what arises in the mind stream when you're sitting down, holding still and doing nothing but looking at a wall. More?
Asham bowing. Do we lean on intention to help us pick and choose, or bowing?
No. Don't lean on anything. The only thing about picking and choosing, it will keep you from falling over backwards because you're intending. It has a forward quality to it. It won't necessarily be a movement until it becomes that. It's just going to do that no matter what. No matter what.
Asham bowing. Are you saying that if you are operating out of intention, then the picking and choosing is sort of irrelevant, bowing?
Yup. I don't have to pronounce it irrelevant. But you could pronounce it irreverent. Go for it. More questions?
Junjubang, if there's pressure to pick and choose, can we stay open somehow?
Pressure being situationally, you're going to have pressures like that. You need to, time's almost up. Only so much time to decide what to do. That's what you're referring to, I suppose. It could be a person, it could be your parents, or it could be a partnership or something where you got to decide, am I going to do here, or go there, or do this, or do that? So I think it's possible. It might not feel particularly comfortable because you do have those pressures, but you're not necessarily agreeing with those, but you're not ignoring them or taking your eyes off from them, but you're including those too. They're a part of it. It's not like, oh, now that I have all this pressure here, damn it all, I wanted to not pick and choose, but these assholes will come along and put pressure on me. Now I gotta pick and choose. Follow me? That's good enough. Probably doing a lot better than a lot of people. Kind of following me is better than not following at all. When I'm saying following, just get kind of an idea of what I'm talking about or what I'm endeavoring to point at. Not easy to do that. Not easy to understand it.
Lately, I'm having difficulty committing to a decision. Feels like there's a fear of not wanting to lock myself into something that might change. Is there?
Doesn't sound too bad. Probably will change, but it could change to some situation where wouldn't have to do anything at all. You were starting to say, I interrupted you. What was the rest of your sentence?
Just wondering how to work with that.
Just receive it. Just look at it. It's going to take all kinds of shapes, and probably shapes that you've never seen before. Just do the best you can to receive it. give it the benefit of the doubt for as long as you can until you have to do something about it. And that can be just a deadline that you have to decide this by 3:00 tomorrow afternoon, or decision will be made for you. You will not be able to do that. You won't be able to pick and choose it because that's what's going to happen. So just keep that in mind. You may go another direction. Strong sitting practice, strong awareness practice won't do it for you, but it will, and it won't be more comfortable, but it will get you close to understanding what you need to do and what you don't need to do. Those are good.
In that kind of situation where you've got a deadline and if you don't make a decision, some door will close or open or whatever. Are we just, if we're not picking and choosing, are we just waiting to find out what we end up doing?
I like that. Waiting to find out what you end up doing. Yeah, find out what you end up doing. I think there's a talk title there somewhere. Really, it's a little silly, but it's like if you don't do anything, if you don't push the whole issue, you will head in a particular direction. It may not be initially, it may not look all that right or successful, but we all are living in a very, very immeasurable, big picture. It's incredibly huge compared to our little mind stream that's operating out of what should I do next? What should I do with my job or my relationship or my diet or me. So we're tightening down in that. So we could include the whole cloud of what is this? What is happening? That kind of openness and that kind of understanding. And you may find that you might not even, you might feel like, well, I can't really make a decision, and then it will be made for you. Or maybe nothing will happen. Or maybe you'll find out what you end up doing. Yes.
What about, I was on a very similar track with what is choicelessness? Is it dependent origination whenever
the way it can show up different ways in your path and your practice? You can look back over your life and you can kind of see that certain things that you did, you thought were decisions, were actually choiceless. You couldn't help but do that. And there were other things that you did that you might feel that you could have gone another direction and maybe you should have, or something like that. Quite often just based on success and failure, right and wrong, amount of money in the bank, and the success of your love affairs or whatever it may be. So, but freedom is choiceless. Freedom, liberation from the death grip or life grip of the three poisons that has all of us to some extent. To see what that is, it just comes apart. The self, the imaginary self, parikalpana, it just starts to collapse. And the only thing that's left is paratantra, or dependent origination. And you realize the consciousness is still there. There's still awareness, but there's no individual anymore. And it may not look any different to anyone else. It may be, probably will be quite a bit different to you, but there's nothing you can say about it. You can't even say to someone, I don't think I'm a me anymore. And the other person might say, how nice for you. They're not going to understand that. Or you might say, I can't seem to find out where I'm at anymore. I no longer have a location in time or space. And it won't be an event. You realize you've never had that. You've never been somebody. And at that time, you live in dependent origination. You don't make decisions. Someone might see you deciding to buy one kind of car or something, rather than another kind, but there won't be an actual choice being made there. They might see you deciding to go on vacation with someone or not. I don't really have a lot of examples for that because it doesn't show up as examples. It shows up in one's mind stream more as there isn't anything to do but whatever's next. The picking and choosing has gone. It will still show up that way to people you're talking to interacting. It'll still look like you're just as much making decisions as they are.
Bowing. If we're waiting to find out what we're going to be doing and something that we aren't doing tags along, do we need to, will that just show up as another waiting till we find out we're going to do that?
Just observe. Just keep it as simple as possible. Don't vote. Don't get on any bandwagon. Don't root for anybody or anything. Just observe. Just receive whatever's happening. You might notice that something kind of shows up. I would that I could give you a firm example. If I could, I would, and perhaps I will before this particular talk is over with, because I think it would be important, maybe important to come up with something there. But it's so easy to misunderstand what I would be saying. It would sound like I don't care what happens, and that might work sometimes. But if I'm talking about something that I would, like for instance, the fundraiser, that maybe that is a good one to go with. Maybe not so good, and probably Susan Hirschfeld will give me a proper scolding for saying this. But I don't care what happens. That's why I can stand up and ask. I don't have an agenda around it. That doesn't mean I don't think. Doesn't mean that I don't want to protect this mandala. Doesn't mean that I don't have relative ideas about this. Wanting to protect this space so people can come here and train their minds. This is not a cult. In a cult, they won't let you leave, and they will get you to commit to certain things. That's not happening here. But there's no. I don't know how else to say it other than that. That happens as an intention, not as looking to make sure it worked. I have enough people around me that are looking at that. Don't have to do that. And you don't either. Question?
How does the teacher function as a mirror?
Intermittently and situationally. Sometimes there's nothing happening there, and sometimes you show up a certain way. If you're a student of the teacher and they mirror back to you, they look just like you. You see it. You don't realize you don't see it, but they look just like you. They're showing you what's happening in your mind by mirroring you. And sometimes that is, but if that mirroring isn't received as a mirror, as a teaching, and you just think, well, the hell's he doing that for? Then, go ahead and continue to spin around in samsara, waiting for the teacher to appear again 3 lifetimes from now. That's why I say, receive it, receive it. I know it's difficult. I know it's painful. I know it's uncomfortable. I had 2 great teachers. Both of them looked at me and mirrored what they saw. And I was apparently able to receive that as a teaching. But it took a while. I was not able to do it right away. At first, it was just confusing and irritating to me, especially with COVID.
What is it that's being mirrored?
Your insanity. Well, we can say that about anybody. Your craziness, your fixation on something that you think is true. That's what's being mirrored back. But if there's no one there, then there's no one in the mirror. Empty mirror. Empty mirror. Empty. Don't see anything. Nothing will be mirrored back. More?
Change of mind. What does that look like?
Empty mirror? Doesn't look like anything. Nothing happens. And it's not some kind of fancy, I think I'm looking at shunyata. Or there's no feeling, no emotion to it. It's just empty.
If rooting for one outcome shows up, is the best we can do just observe that?
Yes. Good one. Yes. Just observe. Anything you just observe has its own time frame or space frame. It will be there conditionally for a while, but it won't last. If it's pushed on or pulled on, aggression and passion, or ignored, it will tend to persist and look like it's ongoing over and over. It looks like it's probably not going to go away. I mean, it will. Everything wears out. Dependent origination. But if you don't do anything with it, then its own dynamic will take it down. Will not last.
Nishikabai, how do we receive the mirror if all we see is a projection of what you are?
You're looking in the right direction, just continue to look.
A question from Jethro in the UK. When picking and choosing has gone, but decisions are still apparently happening, is this anything like Wu Wei or effortless action in Taoism?
Taoism tends to get a little bit fancy. Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu, both, it's beautiful writing and poetry and so on. It's very inspiring to read that. It gets a little bit romantic in that area. The Buddha's Dharma, as it is being pointed out by those who have realized what this is not quite as fancy as that. So I wouldn't disagree with what's being said there, but it's very easy to get on that romantic sidetrack. Forget your question. Was it a really good one? Maybe, yeah. Hondo, you have a question?
I wanted to go back on if choicelessness is dependent origination, is picking and choosing dependent origination?
Everything is dependent origination.
So then when we are waiting for
The big
way to become clear, like we're waiting, like you were talking about earlier, you know, what be interested in whatever shows up.
Yeah.
How is that different than picking or choosing?
Probably not any different. Make you want to figure it out. No. Just observe.
Shadow bowing. I think in one of your interactions with Trungpa Rinpoche that you have shared is that you went in there and just unloaded how much of a difficult time you were having, and he was really encouraging and said, "You can do it. You can do this." How was that being a mirror bowing?
He was basically mirroring the path for me. He was showing me the path that was already in me. He didn't need to mirror my insanity. I was already having enough difficulty with that, so he didn't need to. If I had been ignoring that, then he might have treated me more like Kobun did. When I met Kobun, I thought I was doing pretty good. I thought I was pretty advanced. I was not. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing. So does the teacher mirror what we're ignoring? Bowing.
Probably. It's very situational. I was ignoring the path. And I've been reading about it for a dozen years. I didn't tell him how much I studied it. All that I was telling about basically was the difficulty I was having. Being crazy, having difficult emotions, conflicting emotions about everything. And I thought he would be telling me some things I could do to not have conflicting emotions. But he didn't tell me that. It's like he said, no, go back in there and have conflicting emotions. That's how it felt when I left there. And that's what I needed to do. I just needed to return to the cushion, return to study. You could see that I was already doing what I needed to do, that I was just complaining about this, how steep the mountain was. Thinking it should not be that steep. Any questions on Zoom? Chisho.
Kishabawing. This afternoon also you mentioned, and you mentioned it now as well, about Kobun's teaching by not interacting with you. You said you contemplated on it. How did you contemplate on it? Did you take it to your sitting practice, Bowing?
I probably took it everywhere. I even talked to Takado about it, and I talked to Shoho, Mike, about it, and trying to find out why am I being treated this way? Wow. I mean, I was really pretty miserable about it because but I stepped into it with really strong confusion about my own dynamic, who I was, what I needed and what I didn't need, and my own confusion. And he basically showed me that I was covering up my own neurosis, and that was just difficult. So I would turn into, silly as it may sound, I even thought, well, maybe he thinks I'm enlightened and I no longer need to receive Jukai, as silly as that may sound. But he certainly wasn't thinking that. So I went to different ways trying to find a reason he would just completely avoid me, or when I would call him, he would say, well, I have something else to do. Now, it's very possible, Chisho, he did have something else to do. I might just be taking everything so personally. There's a possibility that he wasn't trying to teach me anything. He was just functioning as Kobun. And if you heard much about Kobun, he was a cloud phoenix. Nobody could locate him. He was all over the place. He was unreachable in so many ways. He was an astonishing teacher, and he was like if you hugged him, he was like a feather. But if he began to teach you, he was like a sword. I was very lucky to have met him.
Kishabawing. As you're contemplating his teaching, so to say, did choices show up for you, and what did you do with those choices, Bowing?
I didn't do much. I did some. I would think about that, and then I would try to just forget about. I had asked Kobun for precepts, and And he didn't say no, he just corrected me. As you know, I've told that story many times. It was very simple. It was maybe to anyone else, wouldn't have been anything. They would have just said, well, okay, well, I'll observe the precepts and then can be persistent. But I am so full of myself that I'm really sensitive to someone rejecting me or correcting me. I'm still sensitive to that. Nothing changes. I don't know how to say that other than nothing changes. It's just that you see that the self that gets offended is unreal. That doesn't mean you won't still feel like crap or feel offended, but you just don't necessarily believe it. You don't add on your imprimatur. You don't add on your belief in it. So therefore, it could still be painful. It's unlikely that it'll have much sway in your life, but maybe some. Still dependently risen, still dependently, not a separate occurrence. It's dependent on so many things that are untraceable, unsearchable, and have no consistent source anywhere. I sometimes say it's better than you think. You're liberated, and it's worse than you think. The suffering is still there, and sometimes more intense, because it's your job. You receive the Bodhisattva vow. It's your job to receive this, to receive the suffering, receive the difficulty, receive the happiness, receive the frustration, receive everybody's pain and suffering. You can't really take it away from them, but you can change your attitude towards everyone and receive it. Practice on the teacher. Receive the teacher. Not that I need it. I don't need anything. Even though earlier in the As It Is meditation today at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I said, I need you. I said, and you need me. But that's a little bit different than the kind of grasping need where I need to have a bunch of students. It's just the mutuality of the whole thing. Further questions?
Jalen Bowing.
Yes.
Is picking and choosing the same as being picked or being chosen? Bowing.
There could be some I don't know, synastry happening there, but it's not the same thing. Someone wants you to do this and chooses you for something. A little bit of that, but mainly it's what's being addressed is that we try to get some particular thing to happen, some kind of materialism or wanting an outcome, picking something because it's better than something else. And quite often, if you get that close to it, you may still pick something, or you may still decide to do this and not do that, but it may be more obvious, like, well, you have to do that. It's choiceless. Maybe a little bit of evaluation in there, but might not be much.
If a fork in the road involves or seems to involve like an impact on our ability to practice around the path, are we presumptuous to think we know what's best for in that area?
It could be. Could slow it down a little bit and look around more to all of the things that are happening in that area. So, like, know what's best sounds kind of fishy. Sounds kind of fishy, like there's a lot of analysis and judgment going on. And the judgment might be based on prejudice rather than actual insight into a situation. Prejudice mean predetermining what something is or isn't. Could be. So go slow, look closely. We'll take a final question if there is one. Yes, sir.
Choosing bowing. How is the apparent arrogance of someone who isn't making decisions different from actual arrogance?
The actual arrogance is a solid belief that you're somebody and you're right, as opposed to somebody else being incorrect. You're sure of it based on whatever logic or reason or what something's done, what someone has done. You just believe that you see it clearly and they don't. So that kind of arrogance. We meet people who are operating like that quite often in different areas. In your workplace, probably meet that. We all meet that. You can, even people who are practicing still might have that kind of puffiness, puffed up. But someone who appears arrogant, who is realized, is that what you're talking about? That appearance is your projection. If a person is realized, in other words, they're not, there's no solid self-centeredness there anymore. And they seem to make very definite, direct decisions on something. Maybe there's some confusion about what's going on. The way you would see it in the monastery is a little confusion about whether we should do this or do that. And this person would say, this is what we're doing. That might seem arrogant to you. Like, I don't know, a good example would be buying Karma House. Did you have some doubts about that? Were you here then? Well, that's why you didn't have doubts. Lucky you. But there was a fair amount of doubts around that by people that I really trust and love and care about, who are students of mine. They're still students. I think so, aren't they? But they were, but I didn't let them into that situation, situational. So instead of saying, why would you do that? Why would you buy that? And what is your plan? And what is your business plan? What, yeah. I mean, you guys want to do business plans, I'm not going to stand in your way, but I'm not going to do them. Okay, you're right. It's because I don't know how. But it just what I'm looking at might be not that I have some kind of profound insight into everything, but it just shows up how that should be, just look right. I don't know what else to say. And I didn't see any point in checking with anybody when I'm looking at it, what needs to happen. We need to buy that. And we did buy it. It isn't a big success story, but it's not doing too bad considering the view and the vision to make this place a really strong mandala. So people can come from wherever to practice if they really want to have a strong practice. This is a good place to have it. Dedicate your life to this for a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, rest of your life. You decide that. It'll be choiceless. Anything else about that? The final word I would say about it's unconditional or confidence because it's not based on conditions. It goes beyond conditions. If it's conditional, then we're right back to evaluating real estate or something, or having a business plan. Not against those. If somebody wants to have a business plan, go ahead. We'll have one. Fine. Good area for questions if you have them, especially with the kind of thinking process that you are equipped with. I would like those kind of questions, much as possible. Because to dig together, you asking and I respond, that that helps us all get more insight into how this all can operate in a way to fundamentally support people's basic sanity. That's what I'm interested in. For as long as I have left, that's what I'm interested in. Not your money, not controlling you. Just come in here and train your mind. Yes, sir.
Neil Kabowing, what will draw people to this mandala?
Damned if I know. Don't have any idea.
Is confidence before seeing what this is arrogance?
You mean relative confidence? It's a little bit of it, but not. It's not a terrible thing. That's the way the world functions on a kind of materialism, on seeing what things are and deciding on what to invest in and things like that. And that's a relative way. I'm not encouraging anyone to get rid of that particular way of functioning.
If it looks like arrogance is showing up in someone else, do I just observe that?
Always observe as much as you can without jumping in for as long as you can. Just observe. Unless Google says otherwise. They won't have any idea what I'm saying there. Will they? One final question from anybody? Taekwondo, do you have any curiosity about anything?
No.
That's my boy. Okay, here we go. Thank you so much.